Today, the CEO of JPMorgan apologizing to the Chinese Communist Party because of a joke. What did he say and why does he regret it? A Canadian energy company suing the Biden administration is trying to recoup losses from the cancelled Keystone XL pipeline. And shares of Gap and Nordstrom plummeting today. It's after reporting weak earnings due to supply chain issues. That and much more coming up on NTD Business. Good evening. Great to have you with us. I'm Paul Graney. The CEO of the largest bank in America, JPMorgan Chase, is apologizing to the Chinese Communist Party. It's over a joke he made yesterday. At an event in Boston, Jamie Dimon quipped that JPMorgan would outlive the Chinese regime.
I made a joke that the Communist Party is celebrating its 100th year. So is JPMorgan. And I'll make you bet we last longer. I can't say that in China.
The Chinese regime didn't directly respond to the comments, but Dimon clarified this morning that he was only trying to stress JPMorgan's longevity and that he was sorry for his comments. Bloomberg reports the bank has almost $20 billion of exposure in China, more than most of JPMorgan's competitors. And just this year, it became the first foreign bank granted full ownership of a securities venture there. And the news comes as the United States government blacklists a dozen Chinese companies. The latest U.S. action on Chinese companies as tensions grow between Beijing and Washington over the status of Taiwan and trade issues. The list includes 12 Chinese firms in electronics, semiconductors, aerospace, and quantum computing. According to the Commerce Department, some of them are involved in the Chinese military's quantum computing efforts. Some others are contributing to Pakistan's nuclear activities or ballistic missile program. 15 other firms from Japan, Singapore, and Pakistan are also on the list. And for these companies, if any American company wants to sell to them, they'll need to apply for a license. So as tensions heat up along with the race for breakthrough technology, both Samsung and Texas Instruments are planning on building semiconductor plants in Texas. NTD's Olin Richards has more.
Samsung has chosen Taylor, Texas as the site of its new state-of-the-art semiconductor chip fabrication plant.
And tech company Texas Instruments has also chosen to invest in Texas, with plans to build as many as 4 new plants. Samsung's plant will have an initial investment of $17 billion and could create over 2,000 jobs. Texas Instruments plants are projected to cost $30 billion and could create as many as 3,000 jobs.
In the year 2021, global semiconductor industry CapEx on plants was $150 billion. That represented a 33% increase over the year prior and double the amount of annual CapEx in the industry from 5 years ago. Global semiconductor demand is expected to increase by 58% over the course of this decade. So that means there's great demand for a large number of new plants to be built around the world.
Stephen Ezell is the Vice President of Global Innovation Policy at the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation. Ezell also says the investments will help the U.S. compete against China.
There are really 3 facets of semiconductor production, including the R&D and the design phase. Fabless companies that design chips be manufactured elsewhere. There's the fabrication, the production part of the process, and then there's the assembly, test, and packaging on the back end. And certainly across these phases, the United States leads.
During Governor Greg Abbott's announcement Tuesday of Samsung's plans, he touted the economic environment Texas built.
It's a model built on low taxes, reasonable regulations, robust infrastructure, world-class universities, and the best workforce in America.
Abbott said Samsung had many other options, and he's glad it chose Texas. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And a Canadian energy company is trying to recoup its losses from the cancelled Keystone XL pipeline. It's suing the Biden administration for compensation. The company said it has a responsibility to its shareholders to get its money back. In one of his first moves as president, Biden canceled a permit for the project that was issued by former President Trump. The pipeline expansion is still incomplete after going through 13 years of disputes, but TC Energy finally gave up on the project in June. So joining us is Jerry Simmons, CEO and president of the Domestic Energy Producers Alliance that advocates for American oil and gas producers. Jerry, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure, Paul.
Jerry, we see the Canadian company behind the Keystone XL pipeline officially asking the Biden administration for compensation for shutting down that pipeline between the U.S. and Canada. Some lawmakers up on the Hill saying that this decision is contributing to higher prices for Americans at the pump. But do you feel that a decision like this just opens up the door for an American producer to come in and fill the gap?
In some ways, it's a very complicated situation. A lot of people don't understand what the Keystone XL was going to do. It's going to provide Canadian heavy crude to the Gulf Coast refiners that we have in this country. And again, a lot of people don't understand that refining process is very peculiar. And most of the refining capacity we have in this country was before the shale revolution. The shale oils that we produce in the Permian Basin, in the Bakken and North Dakota, are what we call light sweet crudes. And a lot of those need to be exported to other countries with more modern refineries that can refine that into the gasoline, jet fuel, et cetera, that we use. That Canadian heavy crude was the kind of crude that the U.S. producers used to produce here, was mostly heavy crude oils. And so our refiners here were all set up to produce that. So it's kind of a complicated question that, can we fill that gap? And I would say that the canceling of the Keystone XL pipeline certainly is part of the political mix right now when you're talking to people on Wall Street about the price and what's determining that price. But it's a shortfall in production. And from early 2020, when we became energy self-sufficient in this country, to today, we in this country are producing about 2 million barrels a day less than we were then. So again, let that sink in for just a minute to think about. 2 million barrels a day less production in this country today than there was in early 2020. So that's a huge factor.
Why is that? Is that down to lack of investment, concern about the outlook, or?
It's all of that. It's what happened in 2020, and again, for someone like me who deals with politicians in Washington, D.C. on a regular basis, it's very frustrating that their memories are awfully short. Okay, we heard last week the White House asking for a Federal Trade Commission investigation into possible price gouging right now. Do they remember in April of 2020? That on one particular day, crude oil prices closed at a negative $37 a barrel. So anybody trading crude that day, at the end of the day, would have to pay somebody $37 to take that oil off their hands. So what our industry has been through over the course of COVID, and then we also had the Saudis and the Russians imposed a price war worldwide on crude oil. That's what led partially to that negative price. Numerous companies went out of business. And then Wall Street, the financial folks that back big projects like crude oil development and looking for new reserves around the world, they started backing off because when President Biden got elected, he said, I'm going to do away with fossil fuels. That's part of his party platform. And so that then started drying up some of the financing behind it. So there's fewer companies available now because, like I said, there were bankruptcies throughout 2020. Early in 21, there were further bankruptcies. And so companies just went away. And the financial sector is very reluctant to invest in a business that the federal government says they want to go away. They want this business to go away. So financing for us is very difficult. And the public companies are under extreme pressure from their shareholders to deliver profits. And don't bring us more reserves, bring us profits now. So that's a lot of what's going on.
Jerry Simmons, Domestic Energy Producers Alliance. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet, Paul. Thank you.
In a major outlier to recent weekly jobless claims, last week's report, adjusted for seasonal swings, totaled only 199,000. That's the lowest level in 52 years. Some economists say layoffs are hitting new lows as employers take measures to attract and hold on to workers. Overall, nearly 2.5 million people received government benefits under various programs in the week ending November 6th. That's down considerably from 3.2 million in the previous week. But despite the sharp drop in jobless filings, businesses are continuing to report hiring difficulties. The labor force participation rate is also well below pre-pandemic levels. And on the good report, Wall Street ended mostly higher today, lifted by gains in Nvidia and other tech stocks. The Dow fell 9 points, the S&P 500 gained 11 points, about 0.2%. The Nasdaq climbed 70 points, about 0.4%. But shares of Nordstrom and Gap sank today. Nordstrom down nearly 30%, Gap down 24%. After the quarterly earnings got slammed by supply chain issues. But maybe it's a chance for better prepared rivals to grab more market share. NTD's Fake Quarter has more.
Nordstrom shares have taken a huge nosedive after missing estimates Tuesday. The company posted a quarterly profit of $64 million, or 39 cents per share, missing estimates of 56 cents. Nordstrom president and chief brand officer Peter Nordstrom says they failed to land as much product as they needed in some main categories and missed an opportunity to capture incremental sales as a result.
We experienced inventory shortages in the quarter, especially in certain core categories such as women's apparel and shoes, where demand came back stronger and faster than we expected.
Gap faces the same problem. Its shares were down over 20% Wednesday. It flagged up to $650 million in lost sales and cut its annual forecast. Factory closures in Vietnam led to shipping delays at Gap. That boosted costs because it had to spend nearly $500 million to air freight goods to meet strong demand. In contrast, other retailers, including American Eagle Outfitters, Macy's, and Target, have chartered container ships. They also used air freight or ordered in advance to overcome supply chain bottlenecks to stock their shelves for the holidays. Some small businesses are also overcoming supply chain issues.
We're doing very well this season.
Suzanne McBail is the CEO of boutique lingerie company Love Suze. She shares her secret strategy, running 2 seasons at once to get holiday production in advance.
That way, if we run into production delays with the factories or fabrics or anything, our brand is not affected because I've already received my inventory for fall in summer.
McBail's advice to other retailers: work ahead of time and get ahead of the supply chain crunch. Fake Quarter, NTD News.
So joining us is Jim Iuorio, Managing Director of TJM Institutional Services and Veteran Money Manager. Jim, great to see you. Happy holidays.
Thanks for having me, and happy holidays to you as well.
Jim, we see this week's stocks looking a little wobbly. At the same time, though, safer haven assets, treasuries, gold also not really performing. How are you looking at the market?
Well, the big deal this week has been the confirmation of Jay Powell, or the appointment of Jay Powell, whatever you call it. The point is that rates are getting higher. The stock market has some getting used to. They like dovish, easy money. And Jay Powell, in my opinion, is still wildly dovish, but everything's a relative equation. And relative to Lyle Brainerd, the other choice for Fed chairman, he seems a little more hawkish. So rates have gone up. We've pulled the first tightening prior to the announcement. We had that for July of August of next year. We've pulled that into May, and it continues to come even closer. So the market believes that rates are going higher. That's a good thing, meaning we needed to fight inflation. The economy is getting back on its feet, but the stock market doesn't like, some uncertainty regarding the rates, and has some getting used to it. And that's why the Nasdaq's getting pummeled the worst, because they don't like rising rates at all in the Nasdaq. So I think it's a bit of a correction. I think it'll be about 4.5% when it's said and done in the S&Ps, which is not a big deal. Everybody who's my age is in this market, who sees the market start to turn around a little bit. He asks the question, is it the big one? I don't think it's the big one.
How are you looking at the inflation and the supply chain problems? Are you seeing any light at the end of the tunnel? We've often heard that stocks inflation could be good for stocks, but we see today with the retail earnings, some of these top retailers, Nordstrom, etc., saying that it's really hampered their earnings. They just couldn't get this stuff to sell.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And you said, what are you seeing? I'll say what I'm hearing and reading is that the supply problem is starting to rectify itself, and that's a good thing. But I think in the inflation picture, there's another thing that's going to shoot in and take its place, and that's going to be the wage inflation that's happening. Just John Deere, on their earnings call, they talked about renegotiating with their union and the raises that needed to be put in to deal with inflation. So now the wage part of this is fascinating to me, and I think it's underappreciated what's going on. According to Joe Bruselis, the chief economist for RSM, 3.25 million extra baby boomers have retired in the last year and a half, above what the trend should have been. Now throw on top of that about another, let's call it 500,000, and that's just totally ballpark about who considers themselves like full-time crypto traders now. Either way, we're talking about 4 million people who are out of the labor force who normally would have been, and now the corporations are forced to bid on the labor that's remaining. Now, the president pointed this out and acted like it was a wonderful thing, saying he wants an economy where corporations are competing for workers instead of workers that are competing for jobs. It sounds great when you say it that way, but it's toxic and awful, and it could lead to a lot of companies going out of business if they can't find labor at the right price of equilibrium.
Does it help with things like retail sales, etc., if workers have more money in their pockets?
Sure, theoretically it does. And if they can pull this off and actually in the medium and long term, it doesn't cause tons of small businesses to go out of business, then it could be great. Just they're rolling the dice on something that will probably not be great. I have lots of friends in the restaurant business. We've talked off air. We talked about my restaurant, Branson Palatine, Illinois. I have to plug it. I'm sorry about that, Paul. But a lot of my friends in the restaurant business are teetering on the edge of going out of business, and some have because they can't find the labor. So all of a sudden, this is a great plan. If you're like, oh, companies have too much money, they can part with a little bit to pay labor. That sounds great until you put it into practice. And a lot of these companies in low margin businesses will fall. And then all of a sudden there's at some point in time maybe too much labor because there's not enough companies to hire them.
Jim Iuorio, TJM Institutional Services. Appreciate it. Have a good one, Jim.
Yeah, you too, Paul. Happy Thanksgiving.
And farm equipment maker John Deere is forecasting record earnings next year, making little of the financial hit from that month-long workers' strike. Hopes to reap the demand from farmers with more money after a rise in grain prices. Capped the year with its highest ever profit of nearly $6 billion. Higher corn and soybean prices have brightened the financial outlook for farmers. That boom has driven up the sales of farm equipment, that's despite price hikes by manufacturers. Deere said its North American order books were full or nearly full for most of its large farm equipment. It expects the strike to have little impact on its 2022 margins. And Amazon employees are planning a worldwide strike on Black Friday, demanding fair pay on one of the busiest shopping holidays of the year. Make Amazon Pay is a coalition that represents over 200 million workers and activists worldwide. The strikes are said to take place at factories, warehouses, and outside corporate offices across the world. The group published a list of 25 demands, including raising wages, extending paid sick leave. And the coalition has also taken issue with Amazon's expanding carbon footprint and the amount of tax it pays. And Apple has temporarily halted some online sales of some of its devices in Turkey. Comes after the country's currency, the lira, crashed 15% on Tuesday against the dollar. Consumers can still view the products on Apple's Turkish website, but they can't add devices to their shopping cart. The Turkish lira saw its second worst day ever after Turkey's president defended his decision to cut interest rates. It has stabilized today, but has fallen 45% this year. And still to come this evening. U.S. airlines and airports prepare for a surge of travelers ahead of Thanksgiving. Looks like many Americans are willing to travel this year compared to last. And NASA launches a rocket with technology that could someday save the world. Find out what the mission is after this short break.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Welcome back. U.S. airlines and airports are bracing for a surge of travelers ahead of Thanksgiving. They're hoping for good weather and smooth flying as millions of Americans visit family and friends. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
The Transportation Security Administration said on Sunday that it had screened 2.2 million passengers, the fourth consecutive day with checkpoint volume topping 2 million. The TSA added that Friday was the single busiest air travel day since the start of the pandemic in March 2020.
I am traveling for Thanksgiving, going up to see my daughter in Seattle, and so far so good. It was a little tricky finding parking, but it doesn't seem too crazy busy just yet.
At Los Angeles International Airport, passenger numbers were steady. Many Thanksgiving travelers said they came to the airport early to beat the crowds.
Yeah, so I'm actually traveling to the East Coast, Washington, D.C., and I was just told to be here almost 3 hours before my flight just because it was going to be really busy. So far, it doesn't look too bad, so hopefully I'll get to the gate just in time.
As vaccination rates have risen, many Americans are traveling for the holidays after skipping family gatherings last November and December.
Actually, I'm kind of surprised. I thought it would be a lot worse. I thought it would be definitely a lot more people here, but I'm sure still with the whole, pandemic and our new normal trying to transition, there's some people that's stepping out, as you can see, but there's still a lot that haven't as of yet.
TSA expects to screen about 20 million passengers during the busy Thanksgiving travel period, compared with nearly 26 million in 2019.
No, I've actually seen it. Take the amount of people that you have in here and times that by 2, and that's what I've seen it around Christmas. So it's yes, it's busy, but I've definitely seen it much worse.
Delta Airlines said it expects to fly up to 5.6 million passengers from Friday through November 30th. United Airlines said it anticipates more than 4.5 million passengers this Thanksgiving weekend. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And some get them early, some get them late. Christmas trees are a hot topic this holiday as supply is lower than usual and prices have also gone up. NTD's Phil Zoe has more from a Christmas tree market in New York.
Right in the heart of Manhattan, in front of Chelsea Market, a Christmas tree supplier is setting up shop.
Kind of imperative that people get their trees now. It's a good idea.
I spoke to Bradley from AA Christmas Trees. He says prices have gone up from 20 to 30%.
People are seeing higher prices, and there is a shorter supply. Come sooner, order earlier, online or in person, because we can't really guarantee total replenishment of stock the closer we get to Christmas.
The American Christmas Tree Association says problems like not having enough workers and transportation issues are causing delays everywhere.
Supplies are limited across the country. Suppliers up and down the East Coast and in Canada are all kind of in the same situation.
At this Christmas tree shop, they only sell the popular Fraser fir Christmas trees, from your little guys to the giant 10-footers.
They're used to a slightly warmer temperature, and we know New York City apartments get really hot in the wintertime.
Costs range from $65 to around $500. No time to waste, I decided to cut and prepare my own tree. Let's take it out, spin it. All right. I just got my Christmas tree. Don't delay. This shop is open 24 hours a day all the way until Christmas Day. Phil Zoe, NTD News, New York.
And NASA launched a rocket today. It has no intention of recovering. It's more like a missile that scientists hope can change the course of an asteroid on a direct path to hit planet Earth. Here's the story.
3, 2, 1. And liftoff of the Falcon 9 and DART.
The launch of NASA's first ever planetary defense mission. Instead of carrying satellites, telescopes, or people, this SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket is launching a spacecraft to test a technology that someday could save the world.
It may be the way to save planet Earth if there's ever an inbound big asteroid that could really challenge our existence as a planet.
It's what we call a global killer.
Even NASA Administrator Bill Nelson agrees it sounds like a scene out of the movie Armageddon.
The United States government just asked us to save the world. Anybody want to say no?
But instead of destroying a killer asteroid with a bomb like Bruce Willis, NASA's DART mission, short for the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, is using something called kinetic deflection. That's a scientific way of saying that this DART spacecraft is on a kamikaze mission to smash into an asteroid and try to push it off course.
If it's successful, then if we had a real inbound killer asteroid, we could do that with it and it would miss us.
It'll take the DART spacecraft 10 months to reach its target, the Didymos asteroid and its moonlet, which is about the size of the Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. It's so far away that NASA says it will not create a dangerous debris field in low Earth orbit, like last week's test of a Russian anti-satellite weapon.
The DART mission is creating an explosion and a debris field way out, millions of miles in space, where it is not harming anything.
Godspeed. That's the latest business updates for today, but you can still catch NTD Evening News with Stephanie Cox at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, it's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully see you then.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.